In this video, we'll be learning about the basic stitches of wood embroidery. We're taking the concepts from regular hand embroidery stitches and taking it into the wood environment. This idea is perfect because it allows you to create the same items over and over again, and you'll have a perfect finished product at the end of this whole thing. And by learning all of these designs, you'll be able to create beautiful pieces from here on out. Here is the template that we'll be utilizing for this tutorial. I'll have it linked in the descriptions below. We also use the DMC 8-meter floss as well as the DMC number 5 needle. They have a wide variety of colors and shades for each of the colors, and I find all of these at Michael's, and you could actually purchase these yarns directly from their website as well. This is my favorite way of tying a knot. You're going to wrap your string around your finger, making sure that the shorter end is closer to the tip of your finger. Roll that string off your finger and pull down, and voila, you have a knot. We'll start off with the running stitch, and for all of your embroidery, you're going to start from the back end and always string your needle upwards. The running stitch is an over-under type of threading, and it's super easy to stitch this one. The finished product will have a little gapping in between each of the stitches, and occasionally you will run into getting some knots, and in those instances just make sure to get rid of those knots and continue threading. For our back stitch, we're going to take the same concept as the running stitch, but we're actually going to take one step back so that all of the gappings that we had with the running stitch is no longer there. So if you were to consider these dots as numbers, we're going to go from 1, 2, 3, back to 2, and then we'll jump over to 4 and back to 3. Continue this pattern until you reach your desired length. The chain stitch is super fun. It almost looks like a little braid when you are done with it. String up hole number 1, and we're also going to make a little loop. I like to use my other finger to put some tension on it so that I don't lose that loop, and then we're going to string back down the same exact hole. Go up the second hole and make sure that the needle goes in between that loop you created from the first hole. Using your finger with the string, pull that yarn all the way until you have a good tension. Go back down that second hole, but make sure you're on the outside of the loop. You've now created your first stitch, and we're going to continue this pattern all the way until we get to the end. To end a color, you'll want to create a knot in the back. Simply use your needle to go under one of the threads, creating a loop and putting your needle through it. I found these cute embroidery scissors at Michael's, but you could easily use any scissors that you have on hand. The last stitch we're going to learn for the stems is called the stem stitch, which essentially is the back side of the back stitch. The pattern for the stem stitch is 1, 3, 2, then 4. Continue this pattern until you reach your desired length. Now that we're done with all of our stems, let's go ahead and move on to our floral pieces. We're going to learn some of the wheels as well as some knots. And here is when I realized I spelled daisy and lazy daisy incorrectly, but that's okay, we're going to fly with this. And don't worry, the template will have the correct spelling. For the woven wheel, go up the center circle and go down each of the outer 5 circles. You want to make sure that each of the strings aren't too tight because we're actually going to start weaving a pattern through it, going under and over these little strings. Bring the needle back up the center and we're going to begin the weaving process. So I like to just start from the top and go under the first thread, skip the second one to the right and go under the third one. And continue this process all the way until you reach the outer rim of that circle. I'll also mention that if you have any of these wheel patterns in your pattern, you'll want to do those first because it's actually easier to complete those and not snag any of your stitches afterwards. Once you're done with the wheel, simply place the needle down one of the outer holes and you are done. Moving on to the lazy daisy, we are going to be doing the same exact stitch as this chain stitch, but only for one hole. Go up the center and back down the same exact hole, holding on to some of the thread. Come up the second hole and go inside of that loop. Tighten the string to provide a smaller petal shape, and then we're going to close it off by going back down the same exact hole on the other side of the loop. You could give each of your petals some personality by giving it a little bit of a stretch and making the string a little bit looser. It's up to you if you want it to be tight or make it like a bigger petal. Continue this process for all of the remaining petals and you'll have a beautiful piece. Let's also complete the remaining 2 flower petals on the right hand side before we move on to the knots. For the French knot, come up one of the holes and wrap your thread around the needle about 2 or 3 times. Stick the needle back in the same hole and you'll want to tug on the string to get the little knot as close to the bottom of that hole as possible. Continue holding the string with one hand while you pull the needle down the wood. You should then see a cute little knot and you can continue this process. I like to actually do like maybe 3 loops around my string. I think that provides a more fluffier look, but 2 is also great. Here's what the knot would look like if you didn't give any tension on your thread or made it a little bit looser. But honestly, when I'm making a flower, I actually like the little imperfections. I think it makes it have a little bit of personality. The colonial knot is different from the French knot in that it looks a little bit tighter and maybe even cleaner. You're essentially making a figure 8 with your needle and thread. And similar to the French knot, you'll want to make sure to tug down that knot all the way down to the closest side of the wood so that the wood and the knot looks really nice and cohesive. So let's try this again. String down, needle down, wrap the needle and have the needle pointing up. Wrap around the thread and stick the needle back into the same hole. Give it a little tug while you thread the needle down the hole. If I'm being honest, I actually gravitate more towards the French knot just because I like the more messy, bigger look. So it's really up to you of which style you like best. And just like that, we have completed the embroidery tutorial and you have learned so many new different styles of stitches that you could implement into your new design. Thank you for following and I will see you on the next one.